Så hvad er det i virkeligheden, at ChannelFactory beskæftiger sig med? Jamen altså, vi har jo en overline i dag, der hedder From Harmful to Helpful. Og det dækker jo under alt, der hedder brand safety, brand suitability, contextual advertising og så endda conscious advertising.
We've got this responsibility to brands to be, how do we combine being responsibly safe but with being effective and responsible in terms of what we do for community?
And how do we move from an era where we are today, which is an era of exclusion, and move to the more effective and responsible era of inclusion?
So in our feeling, this blanket ban was just dangerous, bad for business, bad for community, bad for people. But how do you get to intentional inclusion? And really, as you'd probably guess, chaos to cautious, to get there you go through conscious. And for us, conscious is being conscious of all aspects of a creator, understanding the creator economy, understanding everything about their content, so we can avoid the negative and amplify the positive. And we'll dig more into that in a moment and how we do it. But fundamentally, conscious is the cure for being overly cautious and excluding and limiting your reach as a marketer, and also the voices and faces of people within our communities.
So today this is the theory, right? So and in our industry, we want a lot of action. We want to know, what do we do next and how can we do this? So we're gonna take you through 4 steps on how we can move from going from the harmful to going toward the helpful. So we're going to talk about being a conscious business, the 4 phases of consciousness. We're then also going to talk about real world implications and opportunities, meaning what does this actually lead to? What results can we get?
Let's look some real media plans.
Yes, some real media plans. And then 4th, we're going to talk about the road ahead and what can you do now and what can you plan for in the future, because this is a journey.
So if I start with we talk about being a conscious business, and that's not fluffy. That's actually about making a choice as a business to drive good business performance, but do it in a way that's good for business and is good for the people and planet. And we believe you can do good business while doing good. So the essence of this really is that most companies are motivated by profit and shareholder return, and you get this fundamental choice. Do I want profit or do I want to be good? And it's seen as an either or choice. And I'm a great believer that it's an and choice, not an or choice. And if you think about it and frame it, you truly can do both, and you come together as an and. So we really summarize this as this idea of doing good business while doing good. And we can do that by framing it through this lens of being conscious. We've got to be conscious of what the business needs, but also conscious for the creator, the community, and the broader impact we get. So by being conscious, it helps get us there. But let's unpack conscious.
Yeah, what does conscious actually mean? We throw this word around, and it actually only means being aware of yourself and what exists around you. Because the only way, if we start there, we're also able and compelled to take a stand, to shine a light, and start a journey toward a more conscious way of doing business.
It really is that point of self-awareness. And if we don't start with the self-awareness, hopefully nobody here has ever gone to AA, but until you say, I've got a problem, you can't start solving it. And so for us in the advertising world, starting out with this recognition of, okay, there's an issue and it's not good enough, and we have to collectively make a difference. So we're going to talk you through sort of 4 phases of consciousness, if we may. And the first one, it's going to be a tongue twister, but we're unconsciously unconscious. I didn't know. Imagine I stood up at the general shareholder meeting of a fizzy drink company, and all the investors are there and the media's there, and I say, hand up, and say, can I ask a question, please? Yes, they say, by the way, are you happy, fizzy drink manufacturer, that you exclude gay and black people from your advertising? Probably wouldn't go down very well, and I think the share price would go down faster than my hand. That's being unconsciously unconscious. They go, I didn't know. Not knowing is not a valid excuse. We have to understand.
And the question we need to ask ourselves to get to this is, what are your exclusion keywords? How many of you have looked into your exclusion keywords in the past 2 months? Hand up.
Would anybody here actually, or do you have people? Peter does, and he has a team to do it. And Mia has a team that looks at this stuff. I'm amazed. Can I give that example that we saw in Italy?
Yes.
If you're in Italy, you can't go to Paris for a romantic weekend. Sorry, Paris is actually an excluded word. Excluded because of the Charlie Hebdo attack that happened at the time 8-9 years prior. Paris was still on a keyword list. I won't name the agency for fear of embarrassing, and it wasn't part of OMG. I won't say who it was. But it's still there. And you go, how can it be that these things sit and they're put on a list once and they never seem to come off? And so it really is a case of, have we looked at the keywords? Which takes us to sort of where this group would now be going, okay, I'm now consciously unconscious. I now know there's an issue of over-exclusion and over-blocking. Well, shit, I haven't checked my lists yet. And I haven't checked my team, and I haven't asked my agency to see what they are, and I haven't been through the list. We looked at just in the English language version of this, we compiled what we see from all the agency and the holdcos. The list I looked through had 155,000 words on it, just in English language. I'm really sad, so I went through the list. And I'm like, sorry, why is the Pope on there? Why is Muslim women on there? Why was Paris still on there, etc.? And really, we have to take that effort to look under the hood and understand. So when we're consciously unconscious, we now know there's an issue, but we might still be carrying out that behavior, knowing that there's a problem.
And the question we ask ourselves here is, which keywords do cause concern? When we start going through the keyword list, which words are really of a concern for you as a brand, as an agency, and what is the next step that we take?
I met with the folks from Vattenfall, and I'm sure many of you know Vattenfall, and I love this idea of having fossil fuel-free electricity generation, because we're not going to stop using electricity. So wouldn't it be great we produce electricity in a fossil fuel-free way? They said their own videos on YouTube are blocked because they talk about climate change and global warming. How can, when 97% of the world's scientists agree that there's evidence to support climate change, can you go, no, that's still deemed as a topic that is too risky and it's now going to be excluded from advertising and monetization? So, you know, this isn't just about fringe elements and some of those sub-circles that Peter talked about with the sub-economies and groups and what Kel talked about. This is a broader issue that applies in mainstream media. When we talked about those three pillars, D&I certainly, that means different things in different countries. In Italy, a lot of focus on LGBTQ+, but mental health. Yep. In the US, it's still race and immigration are hot topics. If I go out to Asia, their framing of inclusion is different. If I'm in the Middle East, their view of sexual orientation is different. But the broad idea of understanding those categories, it's really important to society. And it's something that's hit. Sustainability. Big areas hit with Greta Thunberg on the naughty list. How can Greta be on the naughty list? And then finally, I go to that last column of civic society and think about women's rights and the things that have happened in the US recently on Roe versus Wade and women's right to choice. You get old men making decisions about women's reproductive rights. Anyway, no, not allowed to talk about that. That's deemed unsuitable. So this really is fundamentally systemic and endemic, and those for me are things that cause concern. So that takes us to the third level of now we're consciously conscious. We know there's an issue, we look at a list, and then we start to review it with our teams and align. And we're going to talk about brand standards, and I'm sure when Peter's talking later, it's like his different clients have got different tolerances, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, is it, Peter? Yep. It's custom for each. And also, Mia, when we're going to talk about the values and the values of a company, you have to align it to that sort of essential core truth. So we're now in the consciously conscious stage. It's fabulous. So at this stage,
basically, how many of us are going to go and actually change our keywords to make sure that we are not over-excluding, to include underrepresented audiences, and make sure that, you know, the creators that live off of that economy can make the money, and we can show the ads and our messaging to them as well.
So the marketers here who've got agencies, ask your agencies. It's a good question. By the way, can we have a look and can we do a review of those words and see what's in there? And if they aren't, you're already consciously conscious. If they are, you're consciously unconscious, but you've now got an action plan and you can move to the next level. What I would love is we actually get to level 4, where we're actually unconsciously conscious. We just spontaneously do the right thing. We don't create harm and then have to take harm away. We start by not creating harm. And we just start in a natural place of being inclusive, representative, appropriate from day one. And so it's not a case of actually, let's take away the bad stuff.
So by being conscious and being self-aware and aware of what exists around us, we can actually adopt methods free of inherent bias, because we know what our biases are. So we can work together to find a way where we're building something, not remedying it, but building it from scratch in a good way that is sustainable and good for our brands, agencies, marketers, and vendors, right? It's a journey together.
And so one of the things we're doing in ChannelFactory, but it's not about us today, is going beyond keywords. So we look at semantics, we look at image recognition, we look at IAB category matching, we look at a range of different parameters so we can truly understand these things better. But let me just give you an example that's not an advertising example, just to run you through these. Hey guys, how many of you have been on a call or a meeting and somebody said, hey guys? Anyone been in a call and somebody said, hey guys? Come on, hands up. How many people have heard hey guys? Normally said by a man, normally to an audience that includes women, am I right? And you ask a man, say, I mean no offense, I use it in a gender neutral way because I'm just using it in an inclusive way. And you're going, hang on, that's not my experience. And you go, actually, no, you may think that, but it's not gender neutral. It may be upsetting, and microaggressions. Have we heard of microaggressions? So to me, it's a microaggression. It's a pinprick. But if people aren't aware, then they keep using it. So for me, unconsciously unconscious, hey guys, consciously unconscious, hey folks, how are we today? Or if I'm in the south of America, hey y'all. I can't get away with hey y'all. And then I'm now consciously conscious, so I'm going, hey folks. And then I'm and I have to think about it. Hey folks, I'm not going to say the hey guys thing. And then I'm finally at the stage of now I'm unconsciously conscious and I go, hi team. Do you see the journey? But we don't even know there's a journey to go on until we realize that hey guys is not the right thing to say. Yeah? Does that make sense of the 4 steps? And I think nearly all of us have lived a version of that. So I think that helps us see that journey as we work through. Brilliant, thank you. Luis Tacomo, an old friend of mine, he used to be my client and a great friend, so he's the head of media at Unilever. Some of you may have seen Luis or heard of him. We were at a brand safety summit in New York, and Rob Rakowitz from GARM asked him a question, say, what is your ask of the industry? And he said, my number one ask, please check your inclusion and exclusion list. Don't just avoid the bad, raise up those who need more investment. He specifically called out D&I creators and good journalism. And he said, if we do that, we'll create a more trusted, valid media landscape. And you go, this is what it's all about. If we've got a trusted, valid media landscape, it can perform better, it can deliver better for brands, for marketers, but it also makes a bigger contribution to society.
I'm going to use a real example on the news front. We have a news client, and they were running, obviously news, there's politics, there's religion, there's everything, and they had a creative, which was a compilation of all the different news coverage. So there were things about Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, there were things about LGBTQIA+. And we submitted the creative, and it gets flagged for election ad. Has nothing to do with an election, it's news, right? So we need to remedy that, and we need to find a way where policies don't stop the good, because it's a very good news publisher, and we want to make sure that they can also advertise to grow, right? So this is just a real life example.
Certainly in the US, probably the majority of clients, when brand safety standards came out, just cut news completely from the media plan. Just gone. 85% drop in CNN, etc. It's a huge issue. So let's think about this in what does this do when we get back to our offices, and how do we make a difference today? So it's funny, when we think about this and we're sitting looking at client briefs, we're going, okay, I'm talking. When you're placing ads, wouldn't you want to avoid the bad stuff and align with the good stuff? Oh yes, please. Duh. It's like good old, Peter and I would joke about it, it's good old fashioned media planning. On this side of it, they go, well, when I want to make sure that you keep away from anything harmful, so let's avoid any content that's unsafe, unsuitable, or untrue. Duh. And then on the other side, we know contextual relevance. Do you remember, again, those of us who are watching Danish TV, remember when content was king, and it was all about placement of the ad in relevant content on TV and magazines, inside front cover of Vogue, etc. So relevance counts. So okay, avoid the bad stuff, align with the good. Wouldn't we want to be next to things that are contextually relevant, responsive, and inclusive? Absolutely. It's as simple as that. This is good old-fashioned media planning, but it's not how we've ended up living the world today. We were talking to Unilever the other day and going, well, I pay AAS double verify on Moat to do that. I pay a couple of other companies, it could be Pixis, it could be us, it could be Zephyr to do suitability. I go to Adfontis or NewsGuard to do this. I come over here and I've got my IB category matching up here. I go to my DR agency for here and I do my D&I agency here. I get 6 different reports, 6 different data sets, 6 different people, add a couple of dollars to my CPM, and I can't trade the balance off. If you're Unilever, your balance of these, do you remember the days when we had the hi-fi with the graphic equalizer and you could slide each thing up and down to get the right sound? If I'm Unilever Corporate, I would have one shape. If I'm Ben & Jerry's, I have a very different shape. If I'm Dove, I have a different shape. But wouldn't you love all those 6 things in one place that you can then work like that? So for us, we want to get the most where we can understand content in this creator economy that Kel talked about, so you can just constrain the harmful, apply the helpful. And so what this really allows us to do is sort of think about, you drive performance first plus people and planet. You can't do people and planet then performance, because your advertising has to work first. There's a big issue in the US where people like BlackRock, the investors who push ESG, and ESG was all in the news, and then they're going, environmental sustainable governance, no, if it means I don't get as much return on my cash, I don't want it. There were a whole load of D&I officers appointed in companies around the world, and I sit on a board with many of them, and 2 of them were on mental health leave because of the abuse they've been receiving for being D&I officers, trying to drive that narrative. It has gone so far now as almost a reaction against inclusion. So in our mind, people and planet really important, but to get there, you deliver performance first. And if you can do performance plus people and planet, you make a difference. So it's really that balance. So yeah, the things that we talk to your clients about, let's reduce audience wastage, inventory wastage, reduce audience and brand risk. And on your side,
we make sure that we include the creators that are from a diverse background. We choose the content we want to be part of. We increase potential inventory by including highly relevant content. We also include news content, but the type of news content that we want to stand behind. And we increase contextual relevance. So if you are a Ben & Jerry's, you might have a mass audience, but you might have that one release where you want to do vegan advertising because you have a vegan ice cream. So you want to apply to a vegan context. Just an example. And
Ben & Jerry's, interestingly, have been making statements in supporting the Palestinian refugees and what's happening in Gaza. Corporate wouldn't go near that, but that group will. And I think we'll talk a little bit about that later with Mia, about that delicate decision and balance. So talk about keywords from your experience. Like, do you think there's overblocking and exclusion, or do you think you're being able to filter those things out and it's different for different clients?
Yeah, obviously I need to start by saying it's different for different clients, but anybody that has used keywords probably know that it's a very blunt tool. You type in something and there's so much context that you're missing in that. So we try to limit our use of keywords across the clients that we have, and we also try to be conscious about having sort of a dynamic update process, because things happen and then things change and then you need to revise it. The other thing is also that we try to do some, what do we call it, spring cleaning from time to time in the system, because there might be something in there which is from a distant time that has now changed quite a lot. But I honestly believe that keywords is sort of the last resort. So this is the keyword you do not want to appear, so you use that specifically. And then try to avoid making more messy, almost sentences about what you don't want to be against. So I think that's our general approach, but as I said, we have clients across the entire spectrum. So there are some who are very, very keen on actually getting something, or making sure they're not appearing next to something, and then there are others which are saying that, well, we only got 1 or 2 things that perhaps we should be keywording out.
So you're living at level 3, I would say, in our sort of consciously conscious range, and then some of your clients are at maybe slightly different parts in that journey.
Yeah.
I think another point though about language, and Niklas, we were talking about in the break, so Niklas from IPG Media Brands, it's got to be in culture and in language. it can't be an American list exported. So do you want to talk about that? And Niklas, feel free to jump in of like, how do you ensure cultural relevance and nuance on language?
Yeah, I think, and Niklas probably knows this as well, from time to time, some of our international clients, even regional clients, they send us a list of some interesting stuff and say, well, I don't think we can just apply, but you have to do it. So it's sometimes it's mandatory, but we still try to have a discussion regarding that. Then there is the other issue, which is that there are things, if they look at some of the videos as a sample from the outside, then words which in Danish have different meaning tend to be very offensive for them. So they also need to, when you report back, they also need to understand what it is they're actually getting close to. But I think that it's primarily the big international clients where there is sort of a language keyword barrier that sometimes becomes a problem.
Your experience is Lego, isn't it? So Niklas?
Yeah, Lego and some Amazon as well. But essentially one of the ones we have often for us, for our global clients, is climate change at the age of the Earth, because it's list made in the US.
Yes.
And when you have 40% of the population believing the age of the Earth is less than 10,000 years, then you don't want to miss out on that. So something like it's blocked globally, but then the amendment...
You could get me started on the US education system. We could have a whole conversation about that, but yeah, some of those sort of lack of understanding are really dangerous. I think there's also that point of language within culture, and not only just the languages that Google report and analyze. We work in like 49 keyword languages, but also nuance. I'll give you an example. Fire. Fire is coded in as being incendiary. Something's burning, therefore it's bad. In many communities, it started out in the US, in the black community, fire means cool. So any black creators talking about something that's cool and trendy used fire, and therefore they were blocked. Doesn't make sense. But that was the blunt nature of it. Breast is another one. Are we talking nudity or chicken? And at the moment, keywords can't tell the difference. Gordon Ramsay, I mentioned Gordon Ramsay. He wasn't deemed unsuitable for using the F-bomb, which allegedly he does from time to time, apparently. There's a great... How many of us have chopped an onion and cried? All of us. There's a video of him chopping an onion in a certain way that it doesn't cause you to cry. That would be quite good to know, but it says cut, knife, cry, bleed. The keyword can only see cut, knife, cry, bleed, and so his video is actually blocked on the basis of the keywords, not for the fact he's teaching you how to chop an onion. So in a case like that, understanding semantics, if you hold the knife like this, you won't cut yourself, if da-da-da-da, and image recognition, I can see it's a chef in a kitchen chopping an onion or preparing a fillet of chicken. Suddenly I can overrule it. So that was the point I was making to the gentleman from Maersk. Just keywords alone aren't very good. So you can do your best to do include and exclude, but if you add image, semantics, and IB category matching, it makes it way better. Keywords, you're a bit far, you're sort of policy versus practice here. Is that a fair way of saying it?
That's a fair way of saying it.
How does that relate to the values, though, of KPMG and the values you have? And what was on the wall when I first talked to you?
I think that was integrity, maybe. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember. We have 5 values. But I think the most important thing to say when we talked about it is
do what's right.
It was do what's right. It was do what's right. Yeah, but that is still integrity. The most important thing for us, we have a really strong digital partner and a really strong digital department. And of course, we both exclude and include keywords as we go along. But the most important part for us is onboarding the bureau in the right way, because we don't have the manpower to check it ourselves. So we spent very, very long time on onboarding new bureaus, digital bureaus, media bureaus, creative agencies, anyone in our culture, in our values, and in everything in between. And then we also stick with them for a long period. So we are very selective of only working with people who really understand our values, our politics, our stakeholder management landscape, and also that we're quite a complex business. I guess if I asked all of you, what do KPMG do? You would probably say, Is it something about accounting? And I know I have some good colleagues here from EY, and that's actually...
We're not going to shout out Jesper yet, but we're going to get him for a question later.
And that's only actually around 40-30% of what we do. The rest is everything else. So that is my most important takeaway in terms of keyword, that we have a really trusted partner, and we also trust them to let us know if something is up. Of course, it's my responsibility, it's our digital team's responsibility, but we do spend a lot of time on ensuring that how we come across out there is also a reflection of our values.
So values are the guiding light, the North Star.
Always.
And I think for all of them, at least you go, what are we all trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And you, when you're working with your different clients across the portfolio, they're all slightly different.
Yeah.
But if you don't understand those, how can you customize and tailor? So I think values is a theme that I think will carry through. If we think about it, have either of you experienced sort of over-blocking in sustainability or in sort of democracy issues, or do you think that here in this market you've got a much better handle on that? Do you think over-blocking is a problem, or do you think we're past that stage already?
I think we passed that stage. I've asked around in all of our departments, and nobody seemed to remember any issues where we had to go back. But I think it also goes back to there is a dynamic as to the list. So it's
a living thing.
It's a living thing, exactly. I would believe that if it was not organic, then it would be quite an issue.
Having sort of had these conversations in Southeast Asia, in India, in Australia, in the US, in different parts of Europe, it varies. But the first thing is awareness. And if you think about where you are here with the sort of very tight sort of cultural and business community, the awareness is way up there. I've had other markets go, oh, I didn't know. So the fact you're already at level 3, we really appreciate that.
We've experienced, we have a great internal, we call it an ally group, and I just have my notebook here because I got so many good things of what you're saying. So being conscious as us at KPMG, we call it being an ally. So we have a great ally group working for LGBTQIA+ rights every day, and they once a year they do like kind of a flagship video. We call them Queer Space. And a couple of years ago we had several videos blocked because of mentioning the word of queer, gay, homosexual, everything in between. So we've experienced that as well. Recently, we posted a video from a very cool network we have promoting leaders that want to drive net zero in 2050. It's called Leaders 2050, so that's quite obvious. Catchy title. Well recognized. Everyone is working on a very, very important topic and very important subject. No one is trying to make money out of this. It's for free. And the video got blocked because of that it was considered political. So we do still experience it. Also in terms of job postings where we sometimes need to do some demographic targeting, profiling. If we are to get trainees for our audit department, they cannot be older than like 22 or something, even younger, preferably. And on Facebook we have to target these to everyone, and that can also harm our brand reputation. Then we get messages back, why am I'm 50, why am I looking at this ad to be a trainee at KPMG? So we still experience it, and it's it is wastage of impressions.
So I thank you for sharing that, because my mother would say none of us are perfect. All of us as human beings and organizations, we're sort of failed, fallible people, but we're trying our best. But at that point, to be aware, but the fact you're supporting that community and your own content is being blocked, that's the same as Vattenfall talking about fossil-free power generation and their own videos being blocked. You go, this is still an issue, which is thankfully why we're talking about it and raising awareness.
But if I can also add, things are also changing at a rapid pace. I saw Lars here today, and Lars was the director of Kim's, a very famous snack brand. And I was so lucky to be a client executive at an old firm. And we did these, I think everyone here watch Danish television, have watched the commercials with Jørgen, the old snack king. And I think we did this commercial 9 years ago or something like that, where we chose to paint Jørgen's face black in order to promote chocolate, new chocolate from Kim's. And honestly, in the creative process, I'm thinking back, I think maybe once someone raised an eyebrow, but we let ourselves convince by the creatives and were like, okay, fun idea. And that was not received very fun. But today, I dare not even think about if we launched it today. I think Kim's would be in the grave.
But people want to try the chocolate.
Yeah, people wanted to, it works, so what the heck.
And the chocolate's fabulous.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. It's like as culture and standards change, and with digital, I have 3 teenage boys, and I'm trying to tell them everything they produce digitally will never go away, and things can come back. And what you did 8 years ago, 10 years ago, there was a U.S. politician who was recently up for re-election, and they found a college photograph 30 years ago in blackface for a party. And that surface, 30 years later, the times have changed, etc. But on the basis of that, career over. So yeah, it's certainly so challenging, and whatever's out there is never going to go away. So yeah, but I'm glad the chocolate's great. Samples will be handed out later.